Today, I'm covering a different YouTuber. Well, at least a new YouTuber for my channel. It's actually a very old channel. An old channel with several problems and several self-defeating arguments. An old channel with a dedicated and very protective fan base. And from what I hear, an even more protective host. Well, not as protective as my last video.
I'm the greatest anime YouTuber. If you don't think so, fuck you.
A fan base that I'm sure will no doubt hate whatever I have to say about their leader, regardless of how much research and facts I present. Writing off anything I say about him due to those aforementioned problems. It's also a channel with thumbnails that look like this, or this, and a speaker who talks like this. So as you can imagine, the YouTube algorithm is all over content like this. The bots are gonna love it, the fans will watch it anyway, and the people who haven't seen his channel before won't realize I've been ripping off to the intro to the video I'm talking about the whole time. Which leads to the biggest question of this video. Why on earth am I trying to talk like MatPat?
Nobody cares about the Let us end it.
Welcome to Plot Theory. No, not that kind of plot. And the flagellation stick people will say I'm hating on for views today is MatPat, part of the Game Theory franchise. A channel that has been one of the most prevalent on YouTube, but it's also been coasting under the guise of bad logic and scapegoats, saying things like everything wrong they do is just a theory, to write off any criticism, giving the channel even more opportunity to talk about niche, complex games in the same sentence as normally approved games like
Super Mario Odyssey
or
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Now, for those who are fans of the channel, know that I don't have a big problem with game theory. And for the most part, I don't even watch too much of MatPat's channel. But I do want to point out that for some people, it may be worth sitting through the hundreds of hours of theories and live streams that he does. But today, I just want to rewind it all the way back to April 8th, 2018. Yeah, that's right. It's already the current year.
How are we going to get clean drinking water to 2 billion Chinese people? You got an answer?
Today, I'm going to talk about MatPat's video on Persona 4, an attempt to find the shadowy mystery hidden beneath its theory interesting and theory punny game spokesman, MatPat. Now, a bit of a recap for those who haven't seen the channel or honestly stopped watching his content because, after all, it is the current year. Inevitably, regardless of if you care about MatPat or the Persona franchise or not, this video will still get into spoilers about the franchise, so if you haven't seen the video or you haven't played the games, I only have 4 things to say. Spoiler alert and truth denying. Alright, so the idea behind game theory revolves around our main character, MatPat, and his group of writers he's hired to play games for him, and have them write theories he can pass off in his videos to sweep in millions of views on YouTube, based on what's trending, which, as you can see, have seen some very questionable video ideas. To make the videos, he tells his writers, who I'm deeming accomplices, to ignore or omit evidence that directly disproves the theory, and try to sail a boat with Swiss cheese for holes.
You control the story. Don't feel like you have to talk about everything. Focus on the strongest evidence and brush aside some of the weaker moments or parts that may contradict what you're trying to prove.
Together, MatPat and his accomplices go to YouTube board conventions and learn early tweaks to YouTube algorithms used to control what videos show up in someone's feed, and as you can see, the results work really well. Inside, they learn the best way to get views is to create endless amounts of Five Nights at Freddy's, Pokemon, and Minecraft videos. From there, the channel boils down to a basic formula of finding something that's popular and trending and make a theory of it based off of bad evidence, and then stretch the video out to 14 to 19 minutes to squeeze in every little bit more of ad revenue possible. Oh look, I'm 5 minutes in and I haven't even gotten to the point. This really is a game theory video. Then say,
But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Roll credits.
now, a lot of his scriptwriters have no problem with this, and I do mean a lot of them, especially their leader, MatPat. So, in a lot of ways, this positive front of being funny when putting forth a video is a lot like a persona. After all, a persona is just a mask that each of us wears to help in our interactions with society. In all of MatPat's videos, we see him wearing this mask, and he's had this mask right from the beginning, unlike all of his other writers who merely adopted it. So watching his Persona 4 videos got my theory senses tingling. Everyone must have a shadow somewhere, right? But Matt's constantly streaming or making videos, so he never has time to have a shadow. Well, I'm here to tell you that after watching his latest video, it's been staring us right in the face the whole time. That's right. Could it be that if Teddy's used shadow based off of some contrived unfitting evidence, then could it be that the lying, information covering up and ignorance seeking Adachi has secretly been Matt's shadow the whole time? Now, this might seem like I'm trying to fit pieces where they don't belong, but stick with me and I'll show you it's not as far-fetched as you might think. Here on one hand we have a character with no shadow, and on the other we have a character who just so happens to represent an underlying problem in the videos. Add the two together, stir well, and boom, you've got yourself a theory. Alright, that's enough parodying the game theory script. From here on out, I'm just gonna talk more about the game, but first I'd like to clear the air on a few things. First, I'd like to bring up the fact that MatPat did respond and correct himself for some of the problems in the video, which I'll get to in a second. I'd also like to stop and say ahead of time that I'm actually not that upset at the game theory video, nor do I even actively dislike game theory for having scriptwriters do research for MatPat, but I do feel like the fact that they try to put out such a large number of videos to maintain relevancy cause problems for the production that lowers the quality and accuracy of their actual theories. When it comes to my actual views on the channel, I'm more ambivalent. I watched a lot of the early game theory videos, but I dropped off from watching them because I felt that the videos were too uninspired. So I actually haven't seen enough of the game theory videos over the past year or so. So I can't really say if game theory is just really bad or not, but I am friends with a lot of people who are game design majors or CS majors who want to focus on game design, and most of them have described MatPat saying he puts out trash theories, but most of them also said that they really like to see the chemistry between him and his wife in his live streams. So you can make of that what you want, but I just wanted to distance myself from the video at hand for a second to give a wider perspective. With that out of the way, let's talk about his response. In the comments section, he makes a few points that really need to be acknowledged when talking about the video. He brings up that he fears that he insulted the Shin Megami Tensei community with his response to early comments on the video and the opening of the video itself. I really don't think this is important because I wasn't offended by the video, and I really don't think anyone else should have been offended by how he talked about the video at the beginning. I thought it was all in good fun. So I'm just going to move on to talking about the next statement he makes. This next statement's important because I feel like he's trying really hard to make fake excuses for the video having holes, saying things like he doesn't know enough about Izanami and the other games to properly talk about it. But the problem with this is that neither of these things are true, because even with only playing Persona 4 and knowing nothing about the franchise, MatPat's theory is still completely ludicrous. And if he talked more about Izanami, it would only make the theory even worse, and I'll show this in a bit. Alright, so the first point in the video is that at the end of the game, even if you never establish good bonds with anyone else in the game, you still have to max out Teddy's social link, and he'll always appear when you're fighting Izanami. But the problem with this is that it's not true, by which I mean that Teddy isn't the only social link you have to beat the game. Just like Teddy and his Star Arcana, the Full Arcana also has to be completed to beat the game. So not only is it a lie for MatPat to say that Teddy is the only thing you can't be a complete turd to and still beat the game, but it also ignores a major piece of evidence that weighs far more importance in the grand scheme of the game. The Fool Arcana is Use Arcana given to him at the beginning of the game. So if we're going to talk about needing to advance in Arcana to become a regular God among men or savior of the planet, it makes far more sense to look at the Arcana that represents our main character. What's more is the role of the Fool. The Fool is also representative of the investigation team and their continual search for truth. And this is what the final climactic battle is about. An ideological battle about whether or not it's better to always look for truth even when the truth hurts or it's hard to grasp. When compared to Teddy's Arcana of learning to live on even if you never know your place in the world, the Fool Arcana bears far more significance for why you should stand up and fight. MatPat's next point was about the Velvet Room, but I'm going to skip that for a bit because I have a more important point to make with it later. So I'm going to go on to the third point. MatPat talks about the tarot cards and how because at the end of the game you goes from having the Fool Tarot card to the World Tarot card, representing totality and wholeness, that this is meant to signify you's journey from nothingness to a complete being. MatPat ties the fact that you needs to embody all of Teddy's Star Arcana values of self-confidence, peace, hope, joy, to complete the journey. And MatPat's right. All of these traits you does need to have, but this is nothing more but a lie by omission. Because you see, every Arcana in the deck embodies some trait that you needs to take on to become the savior of the world. Not just Teddy. You needs the traits of hope and self-confidence from the Star Arcana just as much as he needs the perseverance and self-motivation from Yusuke's Magician Arcana. By MatPat's logic, over the past 2 points, Teddy's Use Shadow is equally true for every single member of the investigation team, meaning that so far, Use Shadow would be everyone. I mentioned earlier that in MatPat's apology comment, he said that if he explained more about Izanami, then there would be less problems with the theory. So let me go ahead and get this out of the way now. This isn't true, because for anyone who's played the game all the way through, they would know that Izanami clearly admits to not only being the one who gave you his power, but he was also the one who possessed Adachi and Namatame in your fights with them. So if he knew the game and actually talked about Izanami in the video, what would be revealed is that the basic premise of the video, that you needs a shadow, isn't true, because none of the other special people are shown to have a shadow. The very thing that you try to scapegoat in your comment section is the very thing that would actually make the video less legitimate. And it really kind of just shows that the entire video depends on you either lying or omitting evidence to even make the theory to begin with. Alright, so the final point Matt uses to try to prove Teddy is Use Shadow is because Teddy is able to enter the Velvet Room without the use of a contract. But this in itself presents quite a few problems. For one, the idea that you can't enter the Velvet Room without a contract is ludicrous. At the beginning of the game, you start off with you being able to enter the Velvet Room without a contract, and then he leaves and he doesn't even establish a contract until the second time he meets Igor. So even from going off the main character, the idea of entering the Velvet Room without a contract is bunk. And even if we're to run with the idea that maybe he's only playing the original Persona and not Persona 4 Golden, it still has the problem with it blatantly ignoring facts about what Teddy says in the Velvet Room. Yes, Teddy does say,
I was just a shadow in that world.
And he also says,
Thinking all this time about who I really am.
But what game theory ignores is quite a few other lines that Teddy says that contradicts this very idea.
One day, a shadow living in that world awakened to human emotions. But humans and shadows are completely different entities, so he made himself forget that he was a shadow. No matter how much I search for myself, I have no self. But I have to get going. This is your place. It doesn't seem like somewhere that I'd be allowed to stay. Goodbye, Sensei.
It seems the words in your memory weren't the only things you summoned here. This is a room for guests who have an ego that can be nurtured. Shadows, mere fragments broken off from the ego, have no place here. The water's strength has moved a single stone that had stopped, returning it once again into the flow. Very interesting.
Both of these scenes reflect the idea that the reason Teddy wound up in the Velvet Room has nothing to do with Teddy being a shadow. In fact, it shows that if Teddy was a shadow at all, then he wouldn't even be able to enter the Velvet Room at all. Shadows aren't allowed, and this is where we can debunk every single claim in the video, without even having to look at any Shin Megami Tensei game. Teddy may have been a shadow at one point, but by the end of the game, he is neither a persona nor a shadow. He's something more akin to a human.
Shadow is suppressed power. Once controlled by the ego, it becomes a persona. Doesn't it follow then that you must have developed an ego? Whether the ego masters its shadow or the shadow awakens to its ego. The only difference I see is the order in which the process occurred.
Oh, Teddy's practically human then.
I'm the same as humans?
You keep trying to figure out who you are, just like all of us here. You can't do much on your own. You really aren't that special. See? What's so different between you and us?
And this is why I have a problem with the game, because the very end goal of the video seeks to undermine every major theme and value of Persona 4 by the way it's presented. The concept of who or what Teddy is integral to what Teddy represents as a character, and to a larger extent the game as a whole. Teddy grows from a shadow to a persona user to someone who's not quite human. This is indicative of the question of, who am I? Teddy doesn't know who he is because his existence is an anomaly in every sense of the word. He doesn't necessarily belong anywhere. And what we see is Teddy comes to the conclusion that he might never know where he came from or why he exists, and that that's okay. Teddy learns to not get hung up on the value of a single label, and realizes that where he came from doesn't matter near as much as who he is now and what he wants to do with his life. And as long as he's honest with himself and always looks for the truth, that this is okay.
If I'm an unknown being, then the way I can change is unknown too. So all I have to do is make them not unknown. Nana-chan's doing her best. Sensei and the others are probably fighting now too. I'm just a shadow, but Nana-chan cheered up when she heard my voice. So what if I'm just a shadow? There must be something I can do. I can't just give up thinking about things. That's why I came back here, right, Nana-chan?
Persona is a game that very much follows the idea of Jung psychology. Knowing this in respect to the game, the very act of game theory trying to pin Teddy down as just Yu's shadow severely undermines Teddy as a character, and even more so the Jungian influences of the game. Jung feared the inflation of the persona, and over-identification with someone's social mass as the totality of their being.
Most people suffer from inflation of the persona, meaning that they over-identify with their social mask to the detriment of other important areas of the psyche. One must come to the realization that the persona is not the totality of their being, but rather only a small component of a much larger personality. Such a realization is achieved by diving into the unconscious and mining from it the rich and meaningful contents manifested by the archetypes.
And what we see in the video is just that for a shadow. MatPat over-identifies the concept of Teddy being a shadow, which undermines not only Teddy's individualization process, but the entire psychological aspect of the game. But beyond this, there are even more ways that the video flies in the face of the values of the game. Persona 4 is about the struggle of looking for the truth. It's about learning to not just be honest with who we are as a person, but also being willing to accept the truth of who other people are, and even the world around us. Even if that means that it makes your life harder or worse. Because it's better to live a life of hard truths than a life of soft lies. These are the kind of themes that a channel like Game Theory should be able to proudly get behind, seeing as how they both say they want the same goal, to find truth.
Truth is unattainable. It will always be shrouded in fog. Though you reach through the murk and the gloom to grasp something, you have no means to know it is the truth. In which case, why? What sense is there in yearning for truth? Close your eyes, lie to yourself, live in blissful ignorance. It is a much smarter way to exist. It is the same for you all. You undergo suffering because of your search for the truth. This world is filled with thick, heavy fog. How can you find something when you know not what you search for?
But ironically, Game Theory, a channel with the basis in the idea of looking to find hidden truths in games, is actually the biggest perverter of this idea, omitting evidence and changing the values of characters to sell a theory to make a quick $1.50 in ad revenue because it's easier than actually spending the time it would take to get your cards in order.
The idea in both of them is that oftentimes our attempts to figure out what a thing is says more about us than it does about the thing. But where both fail is in their choice to criticize the person rather than the mistaken logic. Bad reads aren't a jumping off point for better, more supported reads. They're things we use to mock or criticize the person suggesting them. Meanwhile, Beginner's Guide suggests its subject is villainous and willing to lie and deface the work to attain attention. If Fake Davey is sympathetic, it's only in his desperation. He's got some real personal problems to work on, but he's hurt Coda, and he's hurt the player by lying to them.
In a recent livestream, MatPat had a video where he talks about people who make hate videos about him. And in it, he brings up this point about people not liking him because he either doesn't know enough about games, or that he brings in a new audience to a fan base that are more normie than what the fan base would like.
I didn't know, and usually I try to research as many of the games as possible, but there's only so much that you can know about in a period of time.
Andy, that's ridiculous. How dare you not know everything about every game and TV show and movie and anime ever made? That's unacceptable.
Well, then maybe you shouldn't be talking about it. It's always the comment. But then the response is, but then I can't cover new stuff, and so I'm trying to educate myself, and then those fan bases jump on. It's like a vicious cycle in a lot of ways. It's hard. It's hard.
And some of the fan base, we can talk about this more later, but some of the fan bases are real. They don't want new people, which is really sad.
It is. It's tough.
They don't want to invite new people in to appreciate a game, or anime has this same issue as well, where they feel like their doors are closed, and that's sad.
Well, you're the normie who's introducing a bunch of other normies into their community who is going to bring it down. And actually, Petscop was a really good example of that, where we had announced on the live stream that, hey, we're going to do a theory on Petscop.
Yeah.
And
it got back to the Petscop community.
And the subreddit of Petscop was literally counting down the days until Game Theory ruins this community because all of his fans are going to rush in and trash it like they did all these other franchises. It's like, I don't know. To me, I would be excited to have more people to bounce ideas off of and talk to and who are fans of my thing, because then there's a chance that I will get more of that thing.
Yeah, you get more of the thing, and you have more people who appreciate the same things you do, and so it's...
But here's the thing, MatPat. For the most part, people aren't mad at you because you bring in a normie audience or crowd, or because you don't know enough about the game. No, people are more mad because when you talk about their games, you do it in a way that's trying to be controversial so it can get on trending lists. And in doing so, you misrepresent a lot of the core values of the game that people went to that video to see. Think about it. People want to watch your videos because they like the video game in question, and they want to hear more about the narrative that they might have missed, because it means enough for them that they want to get a greater understanding of that thing. So for you to instead sell blatant lies or promote ignorance over understanding about the topic, you're choosing to remove the very thing that added intrinsic value to the theory. Unlike in earlier theories like Link is dead in Majora's Mask, where knowing that Link is dead helps the player better connect to the themes of the game or the characters you interact with. Videos like your recent Persona video or even your recent My Hero Academia video, where you go and ignore evidence stated even in the first 2 episodes of the show to sell an obviously flawed theory, shows about as much contempt for your audience as can be assigned through a theory channel.
Just stop. You are all the things that are wrong with you. It's you. All right? It's you. Fuck, man. What else is there to say?
At the start of this video, I set out a theory that MatPat's shadow is Adachi from Persona 4. In some ways, this is a ridiculous claim, I know, but there is some truth behind the claim. Remember, a shadow is a repressed part of oneself that doesn't want to be acknowledged. In the game, Adachi's key trait was the idea of rejecting truth and the reality that's presented before him, and he desired to give this same idea to everyone else.
Why choose reality when you can have a world of your own making? That's clearly the choice, you know. I mean, come on, we all prefer the easy life.
Knowing this, I can't think of a better description for MatPat's shadow. MatPat, for as far as I can tell, is probably a fun, well-intentioned, ambitious guy, with a few less admirable traits, like being willing to compromise truth to both himself and others for the pursuit of his ambitions. This may sound mean, but if anyone's learned anything throughout this video, know that a shadow is only a small portion of oneself, not the totality of their entire being. Millions of people like MatPat, and I don't have a good reason to think that they're wrong for thinking so. From what I've seen, Matt's probably a good person with a few less desirable traits, just like everyone else. And just like you said in your video, everyone has to have a shadow, so there's no shame in having to come to terms with your own shadow. And hey, maybe you'll unlock a persona along the way. But hey, that's just a theory, a plot. Still not that kind of plot. Theory. Thanks for watching.
Or I'm assigning value to this game based on the mental state and personal life of a man I've never met. And then I am, again, just as bad as Davey. Like, I'm either projecting myself or I'm projecting Davey onto this stupid game, right? That can't be right, though. That can't be fair. Look, game criticism is about more than that, right? Right? Either I'm seeking validation for telling you all what I think about this game, or I'm boiling a human being down to one of his projects? Or am I doing this to myself by reading my own insecurities into this thing? What does it say that I see so much of myself in such an awful person?